Vaxee is a new company composed of the former Zowie core team. They've made the iconic EC, S, FK, and ZA series of mice, so even though Vaxee is new, the core team is made up of seasoned veterans who really know their stuff. The NP-01 is Vaxee's first mouse, and it borrows a few things from Zowie mice. Let's get into the review. I'm going to start off by saying that visually, the NP-01 is not the best looking mouse out there. The irregular shape, two-tone finish and texture, glossy side buttons, and S-shaped rubber wheel ring design make for an unappealing and incohesive look in my opinion. But looks don't make the mouse, performance and shape do. With the overall shape being a mix between ergonomic and symmetrical, the best way to describe the mouse would be to take the back half of the EC and front half of the S2 and you'll have something that closely resembles the NP-01. The shell is a shimmery dark gray color that feels like a mix between a matte and glossy coating, which feels smooth in the hands. Those with sweaty hands may have trouble gripping this mouse. The left side has a relatively deep groove that allows for your thumb to rest comfortably. Though for me, I think the groove is just a bit too deep and I would have liked to see this area be filled out a little more to support more of the mid to lower portion of my thumb. Moving over to the right side, you'll see an outward bulge similar to the EC. I find this area to be great for my grip style. I can comfortably lay my entire pinky across that area, which translates to a more secure and confident aim while in games like Valorant and Warzone. Right above my pinky sits my ring finger, which drapes over the groove, adding even more support and helping to reinforce my grip on the mouse. I have a feeling that if this area was mirrored on the left side, this mouse would be a dream to hold. This is not to say that the shape is bad in any way. It's actually really great and one of the biggest selling points of the NP-01. I think I'm just speaking as someone who recently discovered how much I enjoyed the shape and size of the Zowie S1. From the front, you can clearly see the symmetrical design cues starting to show with the even alignment of the main clicks. They are level with each other, and if you follow the shape upwards, you'll notice it stays consistent and even all throughout, including the back hump. With an ergo mouse, you'll usually have the right or left side be slightly higher to allow your palm to come in contact with more of the mouse. You might be wondering where the RGB lights are and if they are any good, but the NP-01 is actually devoid of any RGB. The only lights you'll find are on the bottom, and they are three small, simple indicator lights. I don't know if I'm just unaware or indifferent of RGB in mice now, or altogether for that matter, but it never fully registered that the NP-01 was missing them until I read someone else's review. My copy felt sturdy with no glaring or immediate issues straight out of the box. The main clicks felt great with only a small amount of pre-travel and side-to-side wobble, but not enough to cause it to feel off while in-game or even in normal desktop use. There is a faint rattle coming from the scroll wheel, but other than that, there's nothing else when the mouse is shaken up. In my initial impressions, I noted that there wasn't any creakiness. But after using it for a while longer, I did notice that when squeezing the top of the mouse, by placing my middle finger on the top hump and my thumb over the polling rate numbers on the bottom, I could get a consistent creak to happen. This is not something that will normally happen during normal use though, and I honestly don't think it's anything to worry about. Placing my middle finger on the right side and my thumb just under the side buttons and squeezing with a fair amount of force led to the side buttons to actuate. It's something that will bother the perfectionist, but to me it's no big deal since you almost have to go out of your way to make it happen. If it affected the mouse during daily use, I would for sure make it a much bigger deal, but again, you really have to go out of your way to make it happen, so it's something that can be overlooked and hopefully ironed out in future revisions or models. The optical scroll wheel feels good and performs well overall with very pronounced steps and tactile feedback. But just like with Zowie mice, this thing is loud, if not louder. Thankfully, not everything was inherited from Zowie. Unlike the typical 16-step found in those mice, The NP-01 comes with a 24-step scroll, which is a welcome addition when you're scrolling through web pages in a browser or long documents and PDFs. The scroll click is a little stiffer than other mice I've tried, and Vaxee has said that this was a design choice to help cut down on accidental clicks when using the scroll in games. I can understand and support the reasoning here, but I do wish they were just a tad lighter in case I wanted to bind the button to something I use frequently in a game. The rubber ring is squared off on the edges and has an S-shaped design that reaches out all the way to those edges. The design of the ring is objectively ugly, but it does work well to keep your finger from slipping with its grip and pattern. In place of the current design, I would have preferred a more traditional straight line design like its spiritual predecessors. Again, this is completely subjective, and the current iteration does the job well. On the left, you'll see two side buttons which are glossy and have a convex shape to them. They resemble the Ponage Ultra Custom in terms of design, with the NP-01 buttons being smaller. I would love for them to be flatter, similar to the ones on the S series though. I was also hoping they had a textured finish similar to the main clicks to add that extra bit of grip and to bring the design together. As they are though, both are easy to press and have a great tactile click with little to no pre or post travel. This, along with a good size and placement, make for a really fantastic pair of side buttons. Turning the mouse over to the bottom, you'll be greeted by two bright white PTFE skates coming in at 0.45 millimeters thick. There have been some concerns about the thickness of the skates, and though they are valid, I do think they're a little exaggerated in some cases. The mouse glides effortlessly on my pad with no scratchiness to be heard. Vaxee does offer thicker 0.6 millimeter skates for those wanting another option. I myself ordered an extra set of both sizes to keep as backup and to prepare myself if I found the stock size to be an issue. As of this review, I have no plans of replacing the skates, and only time will tell how well they hold up and perform. But either way, I don't think this is a reason to skip the mouse altogether. It is possible to adjust the lift-off distance by pressing a sequence of buttons, but the high setting is maxed at 1.2 millimeters, whereas other mice can go up to 3 millimeters. With that in mind, it's only a matter of time before third-party skates become available for this mouse, though I imagine the thicker skates may create issues with a relatively low lift-off distance and introduce tracking issues. Next up, you'll see the sensor, which is located right in the center, surrounded by a few cosmetic rings. Under the sensor are three buttons, one for the DPI, polling rate, and click latency response. The mouse doesn't have software, so your DPI options are limited to 400, 800, 1600, and 3200. This won't be an issue to most people since 400 and 800 are fairly common anyway. Unfortunately, for those that use specific in-between DPI levels are out of luck. If you are making the switch over to the NP-01, you'll probably want to take note of your current eDPI and adjust your in-game sensitivity so it matches your new DPI. For the polling rate, you're given the option of 125, 500, and the stock setting of 1000 Hz. I've heard of some people who swear by 500 Hz, but for me, I will always lean towards a higher rate to eliminate any chance of skipping or stuttering. The last button allows you to change the click latency between 2, 4, and 8 milliseconds. This is a nice feature usually found in software. It essentially changes the frequency with which the clicks are registered. For example, setting the mouse on the lowest setting would be ideal for games where you need higher CPS or clicks per second. Setting it to the highest setting helps to cut down on accidental clicks. Honestly, I personally didn't feel a difference when swapping between them, but I also don't play games that require a high CPS. You can't get much better than the Pixart 3389 when it comes to the sensor, and honestly, there's really nothing to complain about when it comes to this area of the mouse. The tracking is smooth and accuracy is exceptional. The main buttons, which are independent from the body, feel great with their light and satisfying clicks. The Huano 60-gram switches reminded me of the G Pro wireless clicks, which are my favorite of any mouse. The buttons do have a slight bit of pre-travel, but not enough to be concerning at all or affect gameplay. A minimal side-to-side wobble is there too, but not something you'll notice when gaming or with everyday use really. The clicks are very responsive pretty much throughout the entire surface of the buttons as well. Speaking of the surface, Vaxee went with a different texture and color for the main clicks. While the body has a smooth and shimmery finish, the main clicks are made of a coarse texture that's darker in color. It feels very similar to the texture of the Viper Ultimate, but rougher. At first I was put off by it, but after some time with the mouse, I grew to like it. The buttons do have a decent gap on the outer edges, so that could easily lead to easy debris buildup over time. After a few hours of gaming, the buttons did accumulate a noticeable amount of dried hand sweat that settled on top, more so than anywhere else on the body. You'll probably want to wipe the mouse down fairly often to keep the surface from getting too nasty. I like a lightweight mouse, but there is such a thing as too light for me. Personally, I like my mice to weigh somewhere between 68 to 85 grams. The NP-01 sits right in the middle of that, and I think it strikes a perfect balance overall. Being a low sensitivity player means that I need to make quick swipes that span most of a mouse pad, and having a mouse that's too heavy will eventually lead to hand and arm fatigue. I think the same can be said for a mouse that's too light, in the sense that you'll need to control your stopping speed with more accuracy while trying not to overshoot your target. Again, the NP-01 sits right in between and provides good control and effortless acceleration. The mouse is somewhat front heavy. When picking it up from the middle, it does lean forward a bit. Weight distribution seems to be something like 55-45. It's probably just the cable and stretch relief at the front though. Now comes the part where I think I'll get a lot of flack, the paracord. To me, it's not that bad, and honestly way better than I had imagined. I know that most mice enthusiasts will complain about it, and while their concerns are valid, I will say that they are a bit exaggerated. What do I consider a bad cable? Pretty much anything that is rubber and braided. Those are actually terrible and should never be used on a gaming mouse. The NP-01 paracord to me is a great mix between the rubber cable of the Zoe mice and the paracord of an XM1. Not too stiff, not too loose. If you have a mouse bungee, the paracord will be out of sight and out of mind anyway. If you don't, the stretch relief will help reduce cable drag thanks to it being angled upwards. All things considered, I think Vaxee has a winner on their hands with the NP-01. Did they nail everything right off the bat? No. I would have liked to see a more uniform design, a much quieter scroll wheel, and a lighter click, and heck, even a wireless version would be exciting to see. Though not all sunshine and rainbows, the comfortable shape, stellar clicks and side buttons, and top-of-the-line sensor paired with the reasonable asking price of $60 all culminate in a noteworthy new entry into the world of gaming mice. It's even more impressive when you consider that this is the first mouse to come from a new company. If this is how Vaxee introduced themselves to the world, I'm super excited to see what their next mouse will bring. Thank you very much for joining me on this review. If you have any comments or questions about this mouse, let me know in the comments. Also, if you'd like to stay up to date about what's coming up next in the channel, join the Discord or follow my social media, which is in the description below. Alright, well, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.